Hello and welcome to The Y Word, the show that gets under the skin of the people that are making the difference in the world and finding out what makes them tick. My name's Ian Hawkins and today's guest is a digital platform expert. Now, there's very few things that have made such a big difference in 2020 as our relationship with digital media, digital platforms, all that kind of thing. So hold on to your boots because coming up in the show, you're going to hear this.
Fast forward to 2020, COVID-19 pandemic happened, and this year they're forecasting 33% growth. So it's just incredible, how we've suddenly had this huge move forward in the industry. And dare I say it, but I think we're going to have the biggest digital online grocery spend ever this year, and I'm quite excited about it. Filming the show was life-changing. The things I got to do, the people I got to meet, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, let's just get on with it, eh? Digital platforms are increasingly how we interact with businesses. Today's guest is an entrepreneur, business writer, and a former Apprentice contestant with a special interest in the whole digital marketplace. Iasha Masood, welcome to The Y Word.
Hi, Ian. We're talking about one of my most passionate topics, which is e-commerce. I don't tell many people, but I'm a little bit of a nerd.
Well, that's all right, me too. I mean, it used to be terribly unfashionable, but being a nerd for something is where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, nerds have become cool. I mean, I remember it used to be an insult back when I was in high school, and now everyone thinks, wow, no, it's dead cool, and I'm just like, okay.
Trust me, it's all good. Let's start by talking about fair trade fashion, because you started off launching an ethical fashion brand. Do you think fashion is one of those industries that has come to ethics fairly late in the day, or it's been a bit slow coming to it?
The fashion industry has had huge challenges in this space, and it's understandable. As someone who's worked in the supply chain within fashion, it's notoriously complex. And, there's a lot of outsourcing. So the person that you're outsourcing to might be outsourcing to someone else who's outsourcing to someone else. And when a supply chain is that complex, it can be very, very difficult to audit it and to make sure that, every part of that supply chain is socially and ethically doing things the correct way.
So is it almost as if they're going, well, it's too big a problem to face down? What's the point of being 20% ethical or 30% ethical if I can't help what's going on further down the chain?
No, I think what a lot of brands and retailers are doing now is they are incorporating elements in, and it's important that we give them the chance to build on it, and that we don't straight away and turn around and say to these companies, well, why aren't you 100% socially compliant? Because the reality is these things take time, and we should be accepting and opening up conversations and allowing things to happen. I mean, nothing happens overnight. I mean, they say that Rome wasn't built in a day. So, I think it's important that we all, we hold a company certainly accountable, but also recognize that it's something that's going to take time.
Yeah, I mean, if you say ethical clothing to most people, the picture that pops into your head is a tie-dye T-shirt, isn't it? Especially for men. It's not something that you can necessarily go to work in. I think when Marks and Spencer's introduced their, I think it was Plan A, and it was just like normal clothes, but with, an ethical element to them. That was quite a game changer, I thought.
Yeah, a lot of big businesses have adopted certain lines, and, it's become quite normal and casual. I mean, I've been into Primark, H&M recently, and they have, lots of casual basic wear, which is fair trade. And I think they're starting to recognize that it's not just the oldie-worldy hippie types that are after fair trade, but it's your everyday consumers, and, that segment of customer is growing. For sure.
So tell me about your ethical startup brand. What was the thinking behind that?
Wow, it was such a long time ago. This was back when I was at university. It was the first business that I ever had, was a fair trade fashion line. It was sort of very early days. I had pure ambition and nothing else. Didn't have any skills, just pure relentless ambition. And I was really inspired to start it because I felt like there wasn't enough people in this space doing this sort of thing. But obviously since then, I've moved on from the fashion industry and, there's a lot more brands, a lot of great brands and a lot of big companies that have adopted this space. And I'm excited to see what they're coming out with, and I'm actively purchasing, and I'm still very much involved in that. But my interests have sort of moved along since then.
Sure. I mean, I used to think that it was down to the consumer to make the change in their behaviour, but realistically, if I recycle a wine bottle or not doesn't make much difference. We have to put more pressure on the big companies because they're the ones that are doing the damage, and to make sure that a big company can turn things around. Do you agree with that?
I think, yeah, 100%. We have to hold big companies and corporations accountable. But, just as I said before, it's about understanding that, when you go behind the scenes, things are a lot more complex than they can initially seem, and that we are looking into and reading about what these companies are doing every single year, what steps they've taken, what their long-term goals are. A lot of companies are now saying, by 2020, not 2020, by 2025, 2030, they're going to have achieved this. And, I think that is the way that we're going to move forward.
Yeah, but are consumers actually capable of holding these businesses accountable? Or are we going to be distracted constantly by wanting the latest thing and the next big shiny object or pair of shoes?
I think the media plays quite a big role. And aside from media, there's social media as well. And I think they are two very, very big driving forces behind this huge change that we've had in the industry in terms of the environmental policies that companies have, and the social and ethical policies that companies have. And it's been a really positive change. So I think those two are probably like the sort of biggest driving forces in this area that are going to push big companies to make real change.
Well, while we're talking about change, I feel like we're at a real crossroads right now for brick and mortar stores, and digital platforms are, of course, your thing. So how's the digital world affecting real life shops?
Wow, such a big topic. The COVID-19 pandemic has just created this seismic shift in the grocery industry. So a couple of years ago, I sort of started to delve into different sectors within sales and, within account management, which is what I do. From fashion, I went into electronics. From electronics, I eventually went into food. And here I very much found a space that can really benefit from a lot of the knowledge that I gained in the other sectors. And for a while, I was a little bit disillusioned with the online grocery market because it wasn't growing as fast as I wanted it. I think, from 2018 to 2019, it was about a 3% growth year on year, which isn't a huge amount. And then fast forward to 2020, COVID-19, pandemic happened. And this year they're forecasting 33% growth. So it's just incredible, how we've suddenly had this huge move forward in the industry.
Yeah, well, COVID has had this massive impact, but retail also has quite long lead times, bizarrely. So, I mean, look at Christmas 2020 is something that people will have thought about in the summer of 2019. So putting you on the spot, what are your predictions for Christmas coming up?
I think this year is going to be challenging in terms of Christmas. We're going to continue to see less importance in stores where traditionally the bulk of our groceries have gone through, and we're going to see an increasing interest in online grocery. And dare I say it, but I think we're going to have the biggest digital online grocery spend ever this year, and I'm quite excited about it. Some of the things that retailers could be doing is cleaning up their content, images, information, digital content optimization. Another area retailers are investing in is UX, that user experience when customers go onto a website and they find it difficult to navigate, it's, the first thing they notice. They're going to turn away. They're not going to come back. So it's another one of the key areas that retailers need to invest in. And I think the third area, which we're starting to see from people like Iceland, is that value proposition. Traditionally in this space, it's been the sort of the normal level, your Tesco's, your Asda's who are operating in this space. And the budget grocers like Aldi have, kept away from it. But, Iceland has sort of emerged, as a kind of like a little superhero in the corner. And, through this COVID-19 pandemic, they've done extremely well. And one of the reasons is because they are so price competitive. While they have a long way to go in terms of, their platform and their product offering on their site, it's really great to see that there's some, real value websites coming through like Iceland, and I wouldn't have expected it from them. So I'm really pleased.
No, it's interesting, isn't it, how our expectations of the online world has changed. You used to accept that buying stuff online was always going to be a bit of a pain. But nowadays, of course, if I don't have a good UX, I take it so personally.
I think it's hugely important user experience. It's gone through a bit of a time where people have become more and more interested in it, and the importance of it has really emerged. I think in online grocery, I would say out of all of the categories online, electronic sales or clothing, I'd say it's the most critical in online grocery than it is in any other area of digital, because you've got such a big basket size, and on average that customer is navigating through so many pages and adding a lot of products in. If something goes wrong, for instance their basket empties accidentally, they're going to be there clicking and putting everything back in, and it can be a huge problem, and it's likely that customer won't return. And one of the things I really love to do is go online on websites like Trustpilot and read the reviews for online grocers, and you find out a lot about the kind of issues and problems they're having, and people don't hold back on there. But it is a great place for you to really understand some of the challenges that grocery retailers are having in the online space.
Well, not just grocery. I mean, booking a train ticket online used to be really painful, but I think apps have made a huge difference. Do you think companies are wising up to all of this? I
think businesses have noticed. I think there was an importance on it previously, but this is another topic about profitability within e-commerce, and I think profitability was causing a lot of businesses not to invest in it and not to pay attention to digital. But COVID-19 has completely changed that and flipped it on its head, and they're more and more interested, whether that's brands, retailers, manufacturers. They're seeing the increasing importance of digital, because they've experienced this huge influx of customers. I think Ocado, it was times 100 on their visitor stats, and you just think that's not double, that's not triple, that's times 100. They couldn't even support the amount of traffic they got. It's kind of waiting for this to happen, for the world to adopt digital, for the world to, come round to e-commerce, and it's very much happened now. And a lot of brands and retailers are, trying to, look forward now, and how are we going to retain some of those customers, some who may be older and don't know how to, they're not digitally savvy. So, UX is going to become extremely important in making those websites more efficient and more easy to navigate, because now we've not just got millennials who are shopping online, we've got the older generation, we've got vulnerable groups, and it's more important than ever that retailers are considering this.
It's great to hear Iasha's enthusiasm for this, because if 2020 has taught us anything, it is that digital is very much here to stay. But how it develops is going to depend on the individual businesses and how they match to what consumers need. Iasha herself talked about the need for digital to reach out to elderly and vulnerable groups. And I think it's true to say that digital has to appeal to everybody, otherwise you end up with this apartheid, people that are in this world and people that aren't. And that's going to be an increasingly difficult place to be in if you're not up with the tech. So that user experience, I think, is something that every company, every business is going to have to get on top of. I think it's also worth saying that if a company hasn't got on top of its digital offering by now, I'd argue that after a few months of shutdown, it's probably too late. So over the next few months, we're going to see an emergence of more digitally savvy, digitally centric, and digitally mature businesses. Anyway, let's put all the digital stuff to one side. Let's talk about The Apprentice, because she's now the second Apprentice contestant we've had on the Y Word. Iasha Masood, the question is, you had so much going for you, you were doing so many things, what on earth made you want to go onto a TV show called The Apprentice?
I think I watched it for years and years, and like most people, I thought I can do better than that.
For our listeners that don't know The Apprentice, I think the popular view of it is that it's a bunch of obnoxious salespeople being really pushy. So as a self-confessed nerd, how did you find the whole competition?
I set the Apprentice record for the highest sales ever on the show, which was just about £1.2 million. And, one of the most amazing moments of the whole show was Lord Sugar's face when he just sort of looks at me like, what? Because I can be quite a quiet person and stand in the background. And, initially when people meet me, they think, that, I'm not very vocal or, have a lot to say. And I think that's part of being a little bit of a nerd. The thing is, I really know my stuff. So when I deliver, and people are just like, whoa, what is going on here?
I've got to say, it's really good to hear that because, as I said in the intro to this question, we all have an idea of what an obnoxious salesperson looks like. And now we know that the most successful very much doesn't look like that. Do you think that in its own little way, The Apprentice is doing something for diversity?
Yeah, I think the way they compile the candidates is, really, really telling. Every single year they have such a great selection of personalities and, different ethnic backgrounds and different work experience backgrounds. And it is lovely to see, but it also means that that's a potential cocktail of explosions because there are so many different types of people. And, it takes someone with a very, very deep knowledge of relationship management in order to navigate that sort of complex group of people and get them to work together.
Okay, so what do you wish you had known going in that you know now?
It's difficult to say because I felt like going through the apprentice process that there was, I don't want to insult anyone or any person or, so I'm being careful about what I say because I'm not that kind of person. But, for me, I wish I'd known that it's equally important to be entertaining as it is to be a good business person. And that's especially important on a show like The Apprentice.
I think that's fair. And, Dan Lassman said something very similar when he was on the show. They're making an entertainment program. The fact that you make money is maybe secondary. Do you think you gave good value then?
Yeah, I hope so.
For those of us that are not the always be closing pushy stereotype, for those of us that are a bit more, may I say, introverted, a bit more nerdy, what would your advice be for getting good deals?
Well, I don't think that I'm a pushy salesperson. In fact, I've shied away from calling myself a salesperson recently because I think what I do is a lot more consultative, especially in the sector that I work in, where you need to work really closely with retailers and a lot of different people, whether it's the finance team, whether it's the forecasting team, supply, logistics, online, social. There's so many different types of people that you work with. I think the number one thing is, to put yourself in their shoes. What are they trying to achieve and what do they want? And then think about how you can help them to achieve that. Because when you're giving to someone else, that's when they're more likely to return it. And in essence, it's sort of like a quid pro quo. You're balancing the scales. you're giving them value, whether it's advice, or insights, or a price reduction, or help opening up opportunities with other people for them. You're giving them some sort of value in exchange for something that you need. So always just think about how you're balancing those scales, because relationships aren't one way. If you just take, and you never give, that relationship is going to die very quickly.
Okay, well, let's pop The Apprentice off to one side for a moment. You're currently with Kellogg's. What are you doing for them?
So at Kellogg's, I work as account manager. For the past few years, it's what I've been doing. I started my career in e-commerce about 7 years ago, and for the past 3 years, that's been within managing accounts and really delivering value on e-com platforms. I work for brands or manufacturers, and I'm given certain retail accounts to look after. So that's my day job. That's what I do. And a lot of those retailers can sometimes be they can be a pure play retailer, which means they're online only, or they can be a B2B retailer, which means they only sell to other businesses, or B2C, what you and me are familiar to, who are omni-channel retailers like your Tesco, your Asda, your Sainsbury's, and I manage the relationship between those brands and manufacturers and those retailers. And I think why it's so critical to have people like me is because we are the intersection between that brand and that product and that retailer. It's people like me who ensure that all of the details on those websites are correct, who work with those retailers to optimize pricing, optimize delivery, create these engaging campaigns. So it's very much a partnership between myself and the retailers, and it's something that I absolutely love doing.
So this building partnerships, is that something that you've grown up with? Is it something that your family does, or are they more, down the sales road?
My family aren't in sales at all. I came from a very traditional South Asian family. So my mum was a housewife, and my dad just worked in a factory. They immigrated to the UK in sort of the 80s, and and then they had me, and I was sort of first generation British South Asian girl, and I had to navigate a lot of complex sort of situations growing up. And I actually don't know where I got my passion for sales, but I think where that sudden realization came was I got the opportunity to go to New York for a while to do an internship there. And when I was abroad, I sort of bumped into these sort of salesy types people and within that company, and it just sort of lit a fire inside of me. I was like, this is cool. What they're doing is cool. They're working with all of these people. They're selling these products. There's so much going on, and I was just smitten by the whole sort of American sales culture. So when I came back to the UK, I was a changed person, and I was already making that shift from, I was in sort of creative arts, and I was moving more towards business.
I've got to ask though, with all this going on, was The Apprentice really the right thing for you to do? Would you do it again?
I would absolutely do The Apprentice again. It's where my heart and soul is. It's where my passion is. I loved every second of it. I mean, it's no secret out there that I had a really challenging time coming out of the show, but filming the show was life-changing. The things I got to do, the people I got to meet, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, that's pretty unequivocal. Okay, Iasha says if you've got the application form in front of you, just do it. Okay, last question. It is your dream business lunch. Anyone in the world who you can sit down with and have business lunch with. Alive, dead, fictional or not. Iasha Masood, who is your ideal lunch companion?
I think it would be Richard Branson. Obviously, one of the most successful people in the world, and when you hear him talk, and the way that he thinks, and the way that he's been very strategic about everything that he's done in his life, it's just clear that he's miles and miles ahead of me. And I think, if I ever got the opportunity to pick his brain, I would jump at it.
Well, I have to say one of my other guests has already chosen Richard Branson, but don't panic. This isn't the kind of show that forces originality on people. It's your guest. You'll have to find some other day in Richard's very busy diary. Iasha Masood, thank you so much for sharing your story with us on The Y Word.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much to my guest today, and thank you to you, dear listener, because I appreciate that you've given us your time and your headspace, and I really value that, so thank you for listening in. If you want to get in touch with the show to let me have some feedback, or to suggest another guest who you think would be ideal to sit in the hot seat, don't worry, it's not really that hot, please do find my LinkedIn URL in the show notes. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. It's a great marketplace for ideas, but do, if you get in touch, let me know that it's the podcast that you're coming from. Otherwise, it's just weird. If you want to dig into some other episodes, you'll find them all on our website, anchor.fm/thewhyword. It's all there. Anyway, that's all from us this week. Have a great time. Till the next time.